Last week, at the Game Awards, we were treated to our first real look at The Witcher 4, the highly anticipated sequel to one of the greatest RPGs of all time. It was just a cinematic, so we didn't see all that much of what CD Projekt Red is working on, but the trailer did reveal one critical thing: the identity of the game's protagonist. It's going to be Ciri, Geralt's adopted daughter, who served as the secondary main character of The Witcher 3, and whose story lies at the center of the entire Witcher saga. It was always the most natural route for the developers to go, and now I'm even more excited to find out what they're cooking up here. So while we wait for more news, let's take a look at the trailer and find out what it tells us about our next adventure on the continent. The first thing that stands out to me about this trailer is that if you were at all concerned the presence of Ciri at the helm might change CD Projekt Red's approach to the Witcher world's unique brand of dark fantasy storytelling, then you really shouldn't be. Because this 6-minute cinematic tells a classic Witcher story. In it, Ciri witnesses a young woman being sent into the woods as a sacrifice to appease the gods. Her father says that he had no choice, and the young woman agrees to fulfill her role. As she leaves, Ciri begins to tail her, at which point one of the villagers notices Ciri, draws attention to her presence, and throws some of the usual Witcher prejudice her way. The man claims that this ritual sacrifice is tradition, but Ciri counters, saying that she wasn't chosen by the gods, she was chosen by him. It's not clear to me if she means that this man was literally the one responsible for choosing this particular young woman as the sacrifice, or if she means that the young woman was chosen by the village in a broader sense. I'm leaning towards the latter, but that's a discussion for another time. Ciri follows the young woman into a forest and rescues her from a balk. A balk, according to an interview with lead developer Sebastian Kalemba, is a monster that preys on a person's fears. Ciri uses a combination of magic and Witcher abilities, something we'll discuss in a few minutes here, to defeat the balk. She then returns to the village to find that the young woman she rescued has been killed anyway, again to appease the gods. At least, that's what the villagers are saying. The man from earlier appears to be responsible, at which point Ciri approaches him, clearly intending to get some vengeance for the poor woman, before the trailer ends. It's a quintessential Witcher story. Yes, there is a literal monster for Ciri to fight, but ultimately the real monster isn't the balk, it's mankind itself. The balk is just doing what it does. It's a force of nature. The true villains are the people who sent this woman to die in the woods as a sacrifice, and when she returned safe and sound, murdered her anyway. It sure seems like this man, who confronted Ciri earlier, is the one responsible for her death. And I've no doubt that there's a deeper reason for all of this. By that, I mean that although this ritual sacrifice is clearly a part of the village culture, it seems like this man might have had an ulterior motive for wanting this woman out of the picture. Perhaps she rejected him, or knows about a crime that he himself committed. Whatever the case may be, I have a good feeling we'll find out what happened in-game. One of the cinematic trailers for Witcher 3, A Night to Remember, or as some might remember it, the Lullaby of Woe trailer, does tie into the events of Blood and Wine. So maybe the same thing will happen here, and we'll get the full story in The Witcher 4. Now, let's move on from story and talk about character. In The Witcher 3's good ending, Ciri becomes a Witcher, and it seems like CD Projekt Red has decided to make this the game's canon conclusion. There are other ways to go about this, but canonizing the good ending would certainly be the easiest way to do it. For the middling ending, they'd have to say that Ciri took the Nilfgaardian throne and then abdicated, which doesn't make much sense, and in the bad ending, well, Ciri is dead. So that one would have to be ignored entirely. So all in all, I think canonizing the good ending is probably where the developers will go with this one. A question that did linger after the good ending was whether or not Ciri had become a full-blown Witcher, as in if she'd fully undergone the mutations and the trial of the grasses. The trailer puts that speculation to rest, as we do see Ciri down a Witcher potion during her fight with the balk. Still, it does appear that she's able to utilize some of her previous magical training, because this spell right here is a bit advanced for a Witcher. If true, then I'm really excited for the gameplay. If Ciri has a deeper spell repertoire, it would set her up to fight like an evolved version of a Witcher from the Griffin School, which was a pretty fun playstyle in the previous game. And if Ciri can do even more of this, then I'll be stoked for some spell sword style combat in The Witcher 4. As for how she underwent the Trial of the Grasses, that's something that will need a bit of an explanation, but the developers have said that they intend to go into this in-game. At the end of The Witcher 3, Yennefer does perform the trial on Uma to change him back into Avallac'h, which is one part of the process, so it's not too much of a stretch to think that someone, possibly the dark-haired sorceress herself, has managed to rediscover all of the steps necessary to create new Witchers. I have seen some folks argue that undergoing the trial is exactly the kind of thing Geralt and Yennefer didn't want for her, but to that, I'd say that the major theme of The Witcher 3's third act, and the now canonized good ending, is that Ciri needs to become her own person, and that Geralt and Yen need to stop parenting her and instead start supporting her. So even if it might not have been something they wanted back in the books, it makes sense in CD Projekt Red's version of events for Ciri to disregard their intentions and instead do what she wants with her life. Plus, to quote Vesemir's last words,
"You always were an unruly child. I adored that about you."
So I think it's safe to say that we have ample evidence that if Ciri wanted to become a full-fledged Witcher, not even the wishes of her beloved adopted parents would have stopped her. In terms of her personality, based on the trailer, it seems to me that Ciri is older, but not necessarily wiser when it comes to the realities of being a Witcher. This whole situation with the village and the ritual sacrifice is the type of thing that Geralt probably wouldn't get involved in unless there was something in it for him, like a contract on the book, or the possibility that one of the villagers could help him with a larger quest. If he were just passing through town and saw this go down, I could see him jumping into action as well. But that doesn't appear to be the case with Ciri here. She seems to be here purposefully, like she knows the dangers of the forest, knew that the villagers were about to send a young woman to her death, and decided to put a stop to it. If so, it sets up Ciri as a bright-eyed, hopeful, and altruistic Witcher, which could lead to some interesting drama. If Ciri is attempting to be the continent's friendly neighborhood Witcher, then we could have a lot of story beats where she enters a situation expecting to come out the hero, but ends up either failing in her attempt to do so, or, even worse, comes away looking like a villain. This is yet another trademark of Witcher storytelling, something explored in each of the games, and of course the short stories and novels as well. It's really intriguing to think about the idea that we could be present for Ciri's Butcher of Blaviken moment, the day she wakes up to the grim realities of her profession. Perhaps our decisions will even impact the way it plays out, which would be a really immersive way to kick off this new saga. Now, in terms of story, in the trailer, Ciri is wearing the same Lynx medallion that CD Projekt Red teased a while back, when they first revealed The Witcher 4 in the smallest of ways. What the School of the Lynx is, when it was founded, or how it was created is unclear, but one idea that I've heard fans bring up for a while now is that it might simply be a personal sigil. Ciri wears a cat school medallion in the books and in the Witcher games, but she is, obviously, most closely associated with the wolf school. A lynx is sort of a combination of a cat and a wolf, so perhaps that's why she'll be wearing one in The Witcher 4. However, I think it's more likely that the School of the Lynx is a new Witcher school that Ciri is now a part of. It's often overlooked, but at the end of The Witcher 3, there was another conjunction of the spheres, meaning that a shit ton of new, never-before-seen monsters have now entered the continent. If humanity is going to survive these fresh threats, a new generation of Witchers will be needed, and thus, I don't think there's a better time than now, right where we are in CD Projekt Red's timeline, for a brand new Witcher school to arise. That's about it as far as narrative details go, but one thing that does stand out to me about the trailer is how frequently the subject of fate and destiny is mentioned. The opening monologue, read by the father, is something of a fake-out. We're led to believe it's about the daughter who's about to be sacrificed, and in-universe, it is indeed. But his words certainly apply to Ciri as well. And of course, much of what he says centers around both fate and destiny. And later on, the book tells Ciri that her fate cannot be changed. This leads me to believe that Ciri's identity as a child of destiny and a child of the Elder Blood will be crucial to The Witcher 4. Perhaps a new, sentient monster brought through via the conjunction is after her powers. Or maybe it's Gaunter O'Dim. who uses Elder Speech and threatens to return at the end of Hearts of Stone, if Geralt decides to accept his challenge. It's also possible that this is, instead, a reference to her lineage. Witcher or not, she's still the heir to Nilfgaard, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if her father Emhyr or other Imperial forces are still out there, plotting to install her on the throne. But that's just my take on all this. What did you guys think about the first cinematic trailer for The Witcher 4? And did you notice anything about it that I didn't? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Huge thanks to Ellyn Storm, who allowed me to use her covers from the Witcher soundtrack for this video. To check out all of her music, just follow the link to her channel page down below in the description box. Big shout out to all my Silver and Gold tier YouTube channel members and Patreon subscribers, including James Pruitt, Corey Matson, Gustavo Balabi, Lil Caesar, Reed, Pathonian, Faith G, and Anna Novakova, who get early access to these videos thanks to donations of $5 to $10 a month. See you guys next time!